guys, welcome to Whiskey Throttle Media. We're out here at Fox Raceway today on our 2024 Kawasaki KX250. And this bike is awesome in stock trim, but you know, we like to throw a little bit of style on it of our own and try to improve it in the ways we think it needs improvement within reason as far as budget goes and things like that. So I am still off the bike temporarily. So we got my buddy, our test rider, Jason Fichera, out here to spin some laps on it. And I actually rode this bike last year, so I was excited to get his feedback. Sometimes different people have different thoughts and can offer different feedback on a bike, just two different styles of riding. So I'm stoked that he's gonna ride it for us. And this is really a RaceTech build. We gotta give those guys a lot of credit because soup to nuts, they really went through this thing and built it. This is all their suspension. It's a gold valve kit and they're valving on the suspension front and rear. No link arms or anything like that. It's just, if you sent your suspension in to get valved, this is what you'd get. And then they really went through this engine. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but RaceTech is now building engines and they do a really good job. So they've found something in this motor where they feel like the ports are a little too big, so they putty them up and then reshape them themselves. And they've got their own spec. And this is just head work. So meaning standard ignition. It's got a Pro Circuit Tie 6 exhaust, but that's really it. We put some ETS racing fuel in it, and that's it. So you could send this in and for a very reasonable amount of money, get this engine. And so I'll let Jason tell you his thoughts, but I also want to just mention some of the, and again, not a lot of stuff done to this past that. Standard bars, we added some ODI lock-on grips, some Nihilo Concepts grip donuts, which are a go-to for us. All of this plastic is standard because it was brand new. The guys at SKDA built the graphics for us and the seat cover. And I gotta give a shout out to our videographer who's standing behind the lens right now, Big Nate Dog. This was his design. He kind of came up with the scheme and the colors. It's got the blingy purple. He likes it. He likes it that way. So it matches his purple Alpine Stars boots. But really, Pro X chain and sprocket, and a lot of the other stuff is just standard. Standard brakes, standard wheels. It's got Dunlop tires, and that's about it. Not a whole lot of extra money and parts went into this thing. So that being said, Jason, take us through your thoughts on this thing and start with just overall feel of the bike. When was the last time you rode a Cowie?
The last time I rode a Cowie was at the beginning of Nationals last year, but it was a 22, so it was before they did all of the reworking with the motor. But I believe the chassis was all the same, and to me, I like the Cowie chassis a lot. It feels very balanced, and to me, it corners, I think, the best out of all of the bikes out there right now. It's the most planted in the corners, and it doesn't feel like it's going to do anything weird to me at any point. So I like the overall feel of the bike. I like the ergonomics of it. And the last one I rode was just missing a little bit on top. It had plenty of bottom-end torque, and I was riding it stock. But in stock form, it was just missing a little bit on the motor side when you compare it to something like a Yamaha or like a KTM or any other KTM Group 250. And then when I first got on this thing, I was a little bit surprised because off the crack of the throttle, it was just so throaty. It was almost like a Yamaha on the bottom end where you could really ride it in a gear higher, which I like to do because I'm kind of used to 450s where you get a little more traction, and it felt really throaty to me, but man, the gears could just pull forever. I came off the track and went, man, this thing in second gear can just go forever.
And so when we did our stock introduction to this bike, particularly in 23, because it's the same this year, they had length in first and second gear, and I made mention with stock gearing, if you are maybe novice level rider or you're a bigger guy, even at 170, I noticed if I'm in a tight track, we did our introduction at Paris, and if it's tight and sticky and ruddy, I had a little bit of trouble getting it to kind of pick up. You had to work the clutch a little bit. And I said if you are a bigger guy or you don't carry a lot of corner speed, you may feel that. So consider a taller sprocket in the rear. But I said if you build this engine a little bit more horsepower, that transmission is going to be awesome because it's basically what Pro Circuit races with. Taller first and second, which gets you that gap between second or third is shorter. So if you got to catch third for a rhythm lane or something, or the start, it's right there. There's no hesitation. So kind of what you're saying makes perfect sense, where those Second gear in particular, where you'd be running a lot of your turns, it just pulls forever. That's that taller second. What other characteristics about the motor? I heard you say something like it pulls super long.
Yeah, I just don't have to shift it as much, where typically on a 250 in some of these longer sections, I'm going from second to fourth. This bike, I might be hitting fourth on one section of this track, but I'm not hitting it in 2 or 3 sections like I would be on a normal 250. But really, second gear is the biggest standout to me, because there's so many sections where on my personal 250, I'd be going second, third, second, third, second, third in all of these like mid-length sections. And on this bike, I'm just staying in second the whole way through. So I don't have to shift down and, you know, kind of upset the chassis as I'm coming into a rut or, you know, going through any kind of bumps or whatever. I'm in second gear already, and I just leave it.
Yeah.
So it tracks nicely going in and out of corners, and I don't have to worry about, you know, grabbing a gear coming out of the corner.
Yeah, when you're arcing out of a turn and trying to get back to set up for another one, and you've got to grab third and then, you know, quickly go back down, it upsets the chassis. It's hard to kind of hold a smooth arc, where on this, if you can just leave it, much easier.
Yeah, a lot easier, especially when you're doing like quick. There's a couple of sections over here by the start straight where it's quick right, left, right, and just transferring weight while you're on the throttle without having to shift is so much easier.
That's awesome. So from an engine standpoint, performance, exhaust and their head work, and you've got a very potent machine. I would say this, outside of very, very high level pro racing, this was all anyone needs.
Yeah,
correct?
I would agree.
So kudos to RaceTech. The guys, obviously, although they've made their name in the suspension world, they figured out engines as well. So nice work, guys. Tell me about the suspension. And I don't know that this was valid for you. It's set up for a different person, but I was curious what you thought.
Yeah, it is set up for a different person, but me, I'm around 165 pounds or so. I don't know how far off the weight is, but to me, it felt really good. It was just a smidge soft, just initially in the beginning, but then we turned a couple of clickers and adjusted the sag a little bit, and it felt really good. It was a little bit divey before when I would get on the throttle hard or hard on the front brake, but after we turned those clickers, the whole chassis kind of settled down a little bit, and it stayed at the same pitch the whole time, which to me is everything. And I could lean it over without having the front go, you know, up and down, and I could hit bumps going whatever speed I wanted, and I just wasn't worried about it.
So it sounds like you had a really good time on this thing.
I did have a good time.
All right, well, it's Nate's bike. You're going to have to fight him for it, but we sure appreciate you coming out. Anything else about the bike that stood out? I mean, standard brakes, standard pegs, standard bars. This is a great thing about modern bikes today is they've gotten to a point where, you know, if you go back 15 years, there was a lot of things you had to do to a stock bike to kind of get it up to snuff. They come pretty ready to go, and with just a few modifications, we've got something that you could race at a very high level.
Yeah, I would agree. The only other thing about this bike that I really liked was the Pro Circuit pipe, because it just sounded so good.
It's got a pretty nasty sound. Mitch always likes to put a little throatiness in your ear, little music, so thanks, Mitch. We always like that. Well, hey, I want to thank all the companies that got involved, especially RaceTech. Those guys knocked this thing out of the park. SKDA always does. If you guys are looking for graphic design work, there's just nobody better in the business. Dunlop, same thing. Thank you so much. ODI Grips, Dunlop Tires, ETS Fuel. Thanks to all those brands. Thank you, Jason, for coming out. Always appreciate your feedback. You got great feel of the bike. I really like having you ride our stuff because we get good feedback. So thank you. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time. Hey, if you guys like the work we're doing, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, click the notification bell, and share it with your buddies.